Welcome to Aurora Connects Season 2. This is episode 6 for Friday, September 18th, 2020, Theater Bay Area. I'm Aurora Theater's Associate Artistic Director, Dawn Monique Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Artistic Director, Josh Costello. Hey, Josh.
Hey Don, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm in tech, and you're in the tech equivalent. Yes.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely tech. We're recording our audio drama, and it's a new experience for us, and it's been a long day for both Dawn and I. We were just talking about how we're both a little loopy today, so bear with us, everybody.
But it's so thrilling to still be making theater, I say with a skeptical tone, but certainly making art during these times. Um, and I picked a little quote that has to do with some of the art making Aurora's doing. So I'm going to share with you all from August Wilson's Joe Turner's Come and Gone. You singing for the Holy Ghost to come? What he gonna do, huh? He gonna come with tongues of fire to burn up your woolly heads? You gonna tie into the Holy Ghost and get burned up? What you got then? Why God gotta be so big? Why he gotta be bigger than me? How much big is there? How much big you want? Um, and for folks who are Aurora Theater members for the 2021 season, we're gonna have our August Wilson seminar this coming Monday. We will be talking about Joe Turner's Come and Gone. For those of you that haven't gotten your membership yet, there is still time to get your membership. It's only Friday. And then read the play over the weekend, or don't, but still come on Monday and join us in a conversation about August Wilson's canon and this play in particular. Have you read it already, Josh?
I'm halfway through.
Yeah. Are you excited for Monday?
I am, and I'm excited for the energy you brought to that quote. That was like the most I think I've seen you like really passionate about the quote this whole time. It was great.
Oh, I'm starting to get back in the acting habit.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
Yeah, and to be clear, if you are an Aurora Theater Company member, or if you become an Aurora Theater Company member, you can go back on our membership portal and watch previous uh, episodes of Dawn's August Wilson, A Year with August. We not a book club, a play club, I guess, but Gem of the Ocean was the first, and it was a fantastic conversation. So you don't have to have missed it if you're not a member. You can join us, purchase a membership either monthly or annually on our website, auroratheater.org, and go back and watch Gem of the Ocean and join us on Monday for Joe Turner's Come and Gone. Also, I had my center stage salon with Margot Hall with the cast of Eureka Day. We'll have more coming up. The Flats, our audio drama, which is what I'm in rehearsal for, is coming up in October. We're recording that today and tomorrow. And then our sound designer, Elton Bradman, will be putting it all together and producing it, and that'll come out in October. We have lots of other stuff for our members, so I encourage you to, and more coming. We're really, a lot more stuff is in the works as well. So please check out our membership program. Join us for this season, this very unexpected season, but we're still telling stories, making art, and making connections in our community. And while you are at our website, there is a donate button at the top right. That would help us quite a bit if you could help us get through this season with a donation. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Friends, we've loved having you be so active in the chat these last few weeks. So please continue to join us by commenting on Facebook or YouTube, and certainly subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the like button, sign up for the bell notifications so you know every Friday when we go live. And I always forget to remind you that this show is available in podcast format, wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Stitch, Apple Podcasts. So you can take us on your run or walk or grocery trip. So today we are joined by Executive Director of Theater Bay Area, Brad Erickson. Welcome, Brad.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Brad, where are you sheltering in place?
I am in my home. This is my study, which I'm spending an awful lot of time in these days. And when it's possible and the air is good, I also love going out into the garden, which I'm getting to know a lot better than I ever did before. It's adding some new plants to it. I'm in San Francisco, so my home is in the Excelsior, about a block from McLaren Park, which is great for my dogs.
Oh, that's
Excellent.
wonderful. That's wonderful. So Theater Bay Area has been a tremendous resource to me my entire career. I got
Mm.
my first subscription to Theater Bay Area magazine my freshman year in college, which was quite some time ago at this point. But for some folks watching, they may not know, if you can believe it, they may not know. So, Brad, what is Theater Bay Area?
So we are a service organization, and then people ask, well, what is that? Um, we're here. We were created 45 years ago by the theater community to help support the theater community in many different ways that are important, but are often just, beyond what a theater company or a theater artist can do in the course of their busy week and year. So includes a number of things, and we've been doing really the same core services for the past 45 years, which is to help make connections between artists and the theater companies, between theater workers and theater companies. We do that in a number of different ways. We hold a general audition every year where something like 400 theater actors are auditioning before something like 100 of our company members over the course of 3 days. It's probably the longest auditioning marathon in the West, but it is often the way that actors, when they're new to town, are first seen, or actors continue to be seen by different theater companies over the course of many years, and that is both the union equity actors and non-union actors. We also have been getting out the word about auditions for years and years. When I came here to San Francisco from Chicago in 1980 something or other, 83, I think, the very first thing I did was, like you, Dawn, I went to go get the magazine, which at that time was called Callboard. I was too cheap to buy a membership, so I would go to the bookstore, I would scribble down the auditions and then slide it back before someone could see me, and that just got tiring after a while, and I missed some auditions. So I went ahead and bought a membership, and I've been, a part of Theater Bay Area ever since 1983. And when I started a small theater company with some other, I'm also a playwright, with some other playwright friends, we were forming a collective. The first thing we did when we had an extra, 2 cents, was to join Theater Bay Area as a theater company member, to sort of join the community in an official way. And that was useful for us as a company member to be able to put out word about our auditions, to be able to utilize Theater Bay Area's different marketing venues so that we could help, Theater Bay Area could help us to get audiences in the seats, to be able to use, at the time we had a half price ticket booth in Union Square. That was useful. So all those same sort of programs are really core to what we do, which is to help connect artists to opportunities, to help them develop in their careers, to help the theater companies do their work better and more easily with professional development and different grants that we're able to give out. We hold an annual conference every year where everyone gets to learn from each other and from some of the smartest minds in our field. Those are the things that we've been doing in different ways for 45 years, and we're still doing them today.
Yeah, I remember back when I started Impact Theater in Berkeley in 1999, the Theater Bay Area was a great resource for us. And I remember going into Cody's books on Telegraph and Billboard magazine, and doing the same thing. It's great. Another big newer program that Theater Bay Area has been doing for a few years now is the awards. That was, I remember, for a long time, the Bay Area Theater Critics Circle was sort of the main theater awards, and there were various criticisms of the way that system worked. And for many years, people have been calling for Theater Bay Area to take the lead in creating a new awards program, and that's become a major part of what you guys do, isn't it?
It really has. I mean, I have to tell you, it was a conversation when I was first brought on, and that was 17 years ago. And at that time, there was a conversation about, whether or not Theater Bay Area should be in the business of putting on an awards program for the field. And so, I mean, this is 15 something years ago. We looked around at all of the different award systems around the country back then. So in Chicago, there are the Joseph Jefferson Awards. In Philadelphia, there are the Barrymore Awards. Almost in LA, there are the Ovations. Almost every major city has their local theater awards. And we looked at the the different award system and the different ways that they were run. We were getting ready to think about launching something like that when the head of the National Service Organization, Ben Cameron, came up with this idea to try to drive audiences to the theater through a free night of theater, which turned into a free month of theater. And we sort of jumped into that really hard and heavy and ran that for 7 years. And that was just sort of, it was like we couldn't do both things at once. And so that program ran, I think, was really successfully for 7 years. It kind of did its thing. And after that was done, the conversations began again. And so for the last 6 or 7 years, we've been running the TBA Awards in an effort to do a couple of things, both to raise the profile of theater generally around the area. We wanted to also be able to really highlight some of the great work that's being done, that so many people in this area, they're aware of maybe 1 or 2 companies that they go to, but they have no idea. We have almost 300 theater company members, right? And when I say that, they're like, what? Like, so we wanted to be able to shed a little bit of light out there that there are way more theater companies out there than the 1 or 2 that you know. There's some great work that's being done all around the region, and to throw the spotlight onto the artists who are doing that work as well as the companies. So, I mean, I have to say, when we had the first one 6 or 7 years ago, and it was at the Geary at ACT's, home base. It was just, I mean, people were screaming and shouting, and there were like rich people behind me that wanted them to shut up. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to make them shut up. They've been waiting for this for years. It was like rain falling in the desert, because, artists just need to they need a little bit of, some kudos, some shout outs. And I think it's been successful in doing that over the last 6 or 7 years. And we were one of the first in the country to pivot. There was just an article that Lily Gianiak did this last weekend in the Pink section, to pivot because of comments that were coming up, and also just being more aware of sort of the inadequacy of the traditional gendered awards for performers, right? So we would have the best male actor and the best female actor in various levels, and that just is not, there are folks who don't fit in either one of those 2 categories. And what were we going to do with those great artists who also need a place to be able to be honored? Or we certainly don't want to pigeonhole them into a place where they don't belong. So we were one of the first in the country to be able to explore this idea of giving out awards without attaching it to a gender. We wanted to keep the same number of awards because, again, we think it's important to throw that spotlight out there. So we give out 2 in each category going forward. And, I'm glad to be able to be one of the first to sort of model this, and, hope that some of the larger national award systems, will see this need and adjust.
Yeah, I've been seeing calls online for the Tonys to adopt that as well.
Yeah.
And the awards are chosen by members of the theater community, right? It's a large number of voters.
They are, exactly. Yes, there are 400 adjudicators. I mean, I have to tell you, when we thought this up and we were using LA's system as a model, they were very, very generous in sharing, kind of like this, opening up the curtain and showing what they did. And I was like, really? We're going to coordinate 400 theater people every week to run around the Bay Area and see shows and make sure that they're logging their scores on time. But it works. They do it, right? And so because there's so many shows happening and the region is so big, there was no way we could do what some other cities do, which is to nominate 10 or 20 or 30 people. You couldn't cover it. There's no way that the area and all of those plays could be covered. So we have a lot, 400 adjudicators. They're all theater makers themselves. They're either artists or on staff of our different theater companies. They're the ones that see the shows. They log their scores. It's a numeric system, sort of like a 1 to 100 system. And that is what goes into the database. There's no sort of horse trading or like smoky room at the end of the year. It's just number crunching. And then out of that comes the results. And when we went into this non-gendered system, we were afraid that, there were concerns that were raised by a number of, female actors that men would run away with the show, that there were just more parts, which is generally true. And there was kind of a thinking that oftentimes those parts are they're just juicier than the parts for women. I don't know if that's true, but that was the sense. And it's so interesting that, really the awards have gone out almost exactly 50-50 splits between men and women over the last 2 years, I guess, that we've been doing this without any manipulation on our part whatsoever. So that's been really gratifying to see. And I think it kind of just proves that this sort of a non-gendered system can be just and fair.
Brad, you've also done a lot of advocacy work that I've been really impressed with over the years. I feel like you're always like off in Sacramento or even DC and talking about various bills that are being considered and being passed, and advocating at the county level, at the city level, at the state level, and at the national level for various programs that are going to help the industry as a whole. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I mean, so this is how I got into advocacy. On my very first day in the office at Theater Bay Area, I walked in with my Starbucks cup of coffee and set it down, and I revved up the computer. This is 17 years ago, and there was an email from the head of the California Arts Council, which is the state agency that grants out money to various arts organizations, and there was an alert from him that he was asking the grantees to send a letter to the Big Five by noon that day, demanding that the Arts Council not be cut more than, well, it was at 30 million at the time, so that it would not be cut down below 20 million. The state was in I think this was this was 2003 when we were in some sort of budget crunch at the time. So he was asking us to do that by noon that day. I'm running a 501c3. I know that there are really strong rules about what 501c3 nonprofit organizations can and cannot do. I wasn't entirely sure about this. I called in the senior staff and said, so what happens when your executive director gets a message like this and like, I don't know, we've never seen anything like it. I'm like, great. And I don't have time to get a hold of my board. This is pre-Zoom, right? So I can't like convene a board meeting at 10 o'clock to see what we should do. So I just thought, well, if the head of the California Arts Council is asking me to do it, it must be okay. So I did. I wrote the letter and I sent it in. And 3 weeks later, I was at a conference that was hosted by the California Arts Council in Sacramento on marketing. And we were having a lunch, one of those rubber chicken lunches that you do when you go to a conference. And someone came running into the hotel ballroom, screaming that the legislature was voting right then and there to eliminate the California Arts Council. So people just jumped up from their tables and ran across over and into the Capitol building and burst into the office of the President Pro Tem of the Senate, who happened to be John Burton, who happened to be from San Francisco, and then just began screaming at the admins, right? That just they demanded to see John Burton that moment, who of course was not in that office. And I grabbed one of our board members, who was Amy Mueller from then at the Playwrights Foundation, and I'm like, okay, we're going to go talk to her. I don't think this is how you do advocacy. This isn't really the right way. And we're going to go see some people. So we began to just make the rounds of our Bay Area representatives and just walked into the offices and said, hi, we're here. We have no idea what we're doing, but apparently they're voting downstairs to eliminate the Arts Council. Not a good idea. And that was the beginning of my advocacy sort of work. And it was clear that A, we didn't know what we were doing at all. B, we had no relationships in Sacramento. And that C, we obviously had not done a very good job whatsoever of talking about our value, of the value of the arts to the public. And while the Arts Council was not eliminated that day, it did have its budget cut by 97%, from 20-something million dollars to 1 million. 1 million. And the only reason that it was given that is because they were told that if you don't give the 1 million, you won't get the reimbursement, you won't get the matching 1 million from the feds through the National Endowment for the Arts. So California was then at the lowest per capita rate of investment in the arts of all of the US states and territories. So we're lower than Guam. And we stayed in that place for over a decade. despite the fact that every year I would be in Sacramento with California arts advocates banging the doors and getting some people to get behind us. But then we went through some really hard times in the state of California and nothing was budging. Nothing was budging at all. And though they would say, we'd like to do something for you, we can't. That finally began to change about 5 or 6 years ago as the economy changed, and when Jerry Brown was the governor, and who created the California Arts Council in his first round at governor. So we now have made our way back from 1 million to 26 million, which I think is a huge, huge gain. And it still places us at only midway in what other states are doing, because we've lost all that decade, right? We were doing 26 million 20 years ago. So we got a long way to go. But we've come a long way. And I think that we've been able to make some convincing arguments at the state level about what the arts do in terms of enriching individual lives, enriching communities, in the ways of addressing equity and creating juster places to live. All of those messages that we've been bringing to Sacramento for the whole time that I've been in my job for 17 years is being understood, and now with some more money is being funded. And I have to say that knowing that we were going into this crazy COVID year at the state level, they did not cut the Arts Council's budget. So that was a huge win, I think, in a year that we know it's going to be really difficult at the state level. And we working similarly at the federal level. There have been some moments when we thought that the National Endowment for the Arts was going to be eliminated under the current administration. That seems to keep coming up every year. Hasn't happened. And in fact, we have some really strong Republican allies in Washington, some of them right here in California, who make sure that doesn't happen and who say, eliminate? Oh, really? We're going to raise the budget. And so the National Endowment's budget has been gradually increasing over the last 15 years. It has its dips from time to time, but if you look at it, the line is going up. And that message, I think, is heard at the federal level as well. And we've had a big win in San Francisco a couple of years ago with Proposition E, which will wind up doubling the money that San Francisco spends on the arts, which was already a lot, right? And anchors it in the hotels, which we thought was a really safe bet until COVID came along. But they'll come back. And I think that it leaves the room open to what we can be doing in other localities around the Bay Area to really make this in case, and to see what cities can be doing to help, the arts in their own communities.
Well, it's just
Brad,
so lovely that Theater Bay. Sorry, go ahead, Don. Sorry.
I was just going to say that we definitely want to hear more about the work that Theater Bay Area is doing in this sort of COVID world amidst a cultural revolution. I know you all have had to pivot, and you've left your building, right? In this, everybody's working from home now. But first, Amanda dug up a cute little charming picture. So we'll throw up this picture of Josh at the TBA Award, just to invite a little levity.
That's the TBA Award. There we are.
And then we will ask you, because there's a lot that's going on for TBA during this time, and resources that TBA is also providing. So do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, some really big pivots that we needed to make. I mean, we're at the core, we're here to serve the theater community and whatever the most urgent needs are of the moment. And those needs changed really drastically in mid-March. And there were some folks who threw some ideas out there. Eric Ting was among them, saying, is there something that as a community that we can be doing to help all of these actors and artists who've been suddenly thrown out of work as all these shows were canceled and they were expecting paychecks and they weren't going to be getting one, or they had a show lined up in a month and that has been canceled. And it was a great idea. And we moved quickly to create, working with our sister service organizations, Dancers Group and Intermusic SF, to create a fund for arts workers, performing arts workers who had been thrown out of work, who had lost money, or seeing that they were going to be losing money because of the COVID shutdown. And I mean, we were having some talks with some funders and with some major donors at the beginning of this, and they were asking us, well, what are you expecting to raise? What do you need to raise? And my board chair was like, $1 million. I'm like, $1 million would be great, but 500,000 would really help. And I thought that was a crazy amount to say, but I thought, let's just throw it out there as a goal. Well, we have raised today over $550,000 in 6 months. And, I mean, our total annual budget is 1.3 million. So for us to raise $500,000 extra in 6 months is pretty unheard of. And that has come in from all sort of sources. It's come in from some foundations, absolutely, and they've been very generous, but it's mainly come in from individual people. And that has been extraordinary because honestly, as a service organization, that we're typically not known for having a lot of, deep-pocketed donors. It's not our world, right? And so it's been amazing to see the community, find out about it and be generous and understand the need that these workers were in, and were thrown in with nobody could help it. That the shows were just canceled, so it's no one's fault except the virus. But suddenly, all of these people were out of work and were out of money, and we've been able to raise $550,000, get money into the hands of over 630 arts workers, and it's still going strong. We just got another $50,000 check in the mail this week. So the money is coming in, but the applications keep coming in. So go to theaterbayarea.org, we spell theater, R-E, and look for the Performing Arts Workers Fund. And if you're so inclined, please, if $25, $2,500, whatever you can give would be greatly appreciated, because there's still a lot of need. Arts workers often have a difficult time proving to unemployment, their past employment history, so they're not getting the kinds of funds that sort of salaried workers are able to get. So we're hoping that we can continue to kind of run that fund until our theaters are back open again.
Yeah, and actors, so many actors get their insurance through having a certain number of weeks of work through their unions, and without those weeks of work, they lose their health insurance as well.
That's
so
right.
It's really grim.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you so much for doing that. I mean, I know a lot of people are really depending on it, so it's much appreciated. And really, Theater Bay Area is in a position to do something.
And then, I mean, a couple of other things, sort of more looking towards the future, is that pretty quickly into this, the researchers at Wolf Brown, whom we have worked with a couple of times before in some major research initiatives, reached out to me to see if we would be interested in being part of a national, actually worldwide, they're doing this in countries around the world, surveying audiences around their sort of willingness to come back to the performing arts, because it's really important for us to be tracking that and to know it's on their minds and what their concerns are. Because while on the other hand, we're working to get guidelines to help us reopen, which I'm working on that as well, it's all well and good if we can reopen our doors, but if no one is going to come in because they're afraid they're going to contract the virus, it really doesn't do us a lot of good. So we need to be able to understand that. And we've been now surveying audiences since the end of May. And we have a body now of research that can give us some really important insights into what people are thinking and whether their attitudes are changing at all. We're working with the League of Chicago Theaters in Chicago and Arts Boston, and with TDF in New York City and others around the country to look at this. And I mean, I have to say, what we're seeing is that Bay Area audiences are the most reluctant to leave their houses than any group in the country. So that's just the way we are. Just in the last survey, which went out at the beginning of September, did people begin to do things like go to restaurants? But that's largely because we've been so shut down. But people had mainly been staying at home. Our audiences are looking at like 35% are saying they don't want to come back until there's a vaccine. Another 15 to 20% say they don't want to come back until there's a cure or a treatment. So that's a lot of people. That's like 60% are saying, I'm pretty not happy about the idea of coming back just because, the county says I can. So that's interesting. That's something that we have to be aware of and look at. On the other hand, what's really interesting is that they are trusting our theater companies more actually than the local officials to have their health in mind. And if you, Josh and Dawn, say it's okay, you can come back, they trust you to be watching out for their health. So I think it's really beautiful. It puts a lot of responsibility on our shoulders, but it's beautiful that they are trusting you all with that.
Well, I've got to address that, because as much as I appreciate that, my wife is an epidemiologist, and I got to say, we got to trust the science on this one. And Aurora is not going to reopen until it is actually safe, and until scientists tell us it's safe. And so on one level, like, I really want to know, after there's a vaccine, when it is actually safe, when is the audience willing to come back? But if they're willing to come back early, I don't want to have that on my conscience that I've like made people sick by reopening my theater.
I think that's why they trust you.
Yeah, there you go. But what I saw in that survey, there was also a question about digital offerings and how audience about that. Can you tell us about that?
So we added that to the survey about midsummer. And it's been fascinating to see. So people they're consuming digital programming, which is great. They're getting more used to it. And one of the things that's really intriguing is that 35% of them are saying that they're interested in continuing to look at digital programming even after you're able to open your doors and they're able to come back. And maybe not surprisingly, young people are leading in that. So we know that, I mean, I'm hearing it from some of our, artistic directors and others, that they're reaching audiences that are, maybe not their usual subscribers, maybe not, usual goers, maybe not even in the Bay Area, right? And so there's new audiences that are accessing programming from our theaters that hadn't been accessing it before through this new technology. And some of them want to keep doing it later. And are there ways that you can bring them into the theater as well and continue to engage them once we can safely reopen? So that's been sort of a bright and unexpected light in this whole pandemic.
Brad, I want to ask, we've been hearing lots of great stuff about Theater Bay Area, but we've heard just a little bit about you. You're a playwright, you started a theater company, you're an actor as well. How did you end up as the executive director of Theater Bay Area? And what took you, there you are in Octopus at the Magic Theater.
Yeah.
That
was my last major acting gig. Although, well, actually, it was in a one-man show and went to Notre Dame, which was really hard to be in a one-man show after all these years. As I said, I've been so connected to Theater Bay Area ever since I came here from Chicago. So I was so aware of its value and its services and how it had impacted me first as an actor. And then when I started a small company, we accessed Theater Bay Area's grant programs, the cash grants. I think we were in the very first round of funding to be funded. And then I sat on like the second panel to help judge the next group coming in. So I was really aware of those programs. And I was running, I sort of thought I liked a day job that would actually pay my living, which I was finding acting was not doing for me. So I was getting into arts administration and just general nonprofit administration more generally. And I was working at the time for an organization called it's a mouthful, the Northern California Supplier Development Council. It was part of it was its own 501c3 based in Oakland and connected to a larger organization. Its purpose was basically to do affirmative action in the business world. So we were looking at what we would now call BIPOC owned companies. At the time we called them minority owned companies, to help develop them as businesses and connect them with large Fortune 500 companies to be suppliers of goods and services to them. And I started working with them as a business development person and was doing more and more work with them and doing things like running an expo and a gala and things that I later would find useful in my current job, while I was also running this theater company by weekend and by night, as a lot of theater workers do. And at some point when the executive director left, they turned to me and made me the executive director, which was a bit of affirmative action on their part to take this white guy and make him the ED of this organization. And it had been such an important experience for me because, you know, I was there for 6 years, and honestly, it was the first time in my life that I walked into rooms where most of the people didn't look like me. First time, right? I mean, I'm also a gay man, so I was used to working in and doing that kind of code switching, but I was totally unused to walking into a room where most people were people of color. And I was also, you know, for the first time, all of my bosses were people of color, right? The executive director was a Black woman, and my two board chairs were Black women, and most of the people on the board were people of color. And to get to know, you know, executives of major corporations and some of our major public agencies, that was just so, it was enlightening for me in so many ways, I can't tell you. And it's so useful now in so much of what we're dealing with in our community. We had been dealing with, you know, equity and diversity issues, but really since the death of George Floyd and the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, that issue has just become front and center. And how to tap into some of that training and some of that experience that I had as a younger white man coming into that field, and to be, I mean, this is what's it's really moving to me. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little choked up. I mean, these wonderful executives of color took this young white man who really didn't have much administrative experience whatsoever and nurtured me and asked me, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I said to my boss, I want to be in a chair like yours in 5 years. And so she said, okay, good, I can help you do that. And they tutored and nurtured me. And then they made me ED. And I have to say, this opportunity at TBA came up only 18 months into my tenure. And I felt terrible going to them to say, after the trust and the way that they had nurtured me, to say, I had to take this other job because it was my calling. And the way that they embraced that and supported me was amazing. And before, when I had shows and actually were acting in some of my own shows, my whole board would be there, right? It was so amazing. And that embrace, one of my board members was Ed Lee, the future mayor of San Francisco, who was one of my tutors and mentors, was amazing. And so I think about how those of us who are in positions of leadership and have some power can be, what are we doing to bring up people and train them? And what can I be doing in the same way, but in a mirror way, to bring up emerging leaders of color and give them the same kind of tutoring that I got from the leaders of that organization?
That's really lovely, Brad. What is it about this that it makes it your calling? What is it about you that makes this your calling? What is?
You know, I mean, I wanted to do theater ever. I mean, I started writing plays when I was 10, and like forced my sister and, you know, our neighborhood friends to be, you know, in these puppet plays that we would do. And the puppets got increasingly sort of sophisticated as we got a little bit older, and then went into, you know, acting in high school as people do, and majored in that in college, and thought that I would direct because that's what all the cool kids were doing. And the head of the directing department said, you really ought to just act first, really get it from the inside. So I did that, and I wound up going to the Goodman School of Drama to get a conservatory experience. It's now the theater school at DePaul. So theater was always what I wanted to be doing with my life. I think the idea of service was not, I mean, no kid goes to school and thinks, I want to be the head of a service organization. You don't even know what it is, right? So I mean, that's no one's, you come upon it later. And I think that it was the experience of how Theater Bay Area had so impacted my career and my development, and being able to launch a company really influenced me. And just oddly, when I came to San Francisco, my one friend in San Francisco was working for Theater Bay Area. So I knew it from day one, but it's been really rewarding over these 17 years to be able to to hear from people that, programs that we've developed and done has really impacted people's lives. It has impacted their careers, has helped them take off. And this, with the fund that we have now, to hear the stories coming back, that, I mean, literally we're giving money to people who are living in their cars. I mean, that's just so, that just feels amazing to be able to have that kind of concrete impact on people. So that's what keeps me in it.
You mentioned the cash grants, which seems like
Mhm.
another one of these programs with Theater Bay Area that's been around forever and is like really fundamental to the Bay Area theater community and the infrastructure here and how things work, how projects go from a small
Yeah.
company to a reading to a workshop to a production, and people young art artists get discovered through it. Tell us about the cash grant and how that works.
Yeah, it is true. It's exactly that, and it was created by one of my predecessors, Sabrina Klein, who had been approached by some of the major foundations here, the Hewlett Foundation, and then the Packard Foundation, and others, who wanted to find a way to get some resources down into, sort of further down into the ecology. They fund organizations of a certain size, and they were quite aware that there was all this activity that was happening with individual artists and very small companies. But for them, it was just beyond their bandwidth to like take in all of the new applications that would be coming from these small groups and artists. So Sabrina made the case that that was something that Theater Bay Area as a service organization could do, would be to take money from them and then re-grant, is the sort of the jargon for it, to make those grants out to those organizations. And that has just been such a game changer for so many. I can't tell you how many theater companies who are around today started with a cash grant. I mean, the Bay Area Children's Theater, Crowded Fire, Golden Thread, you can go on and on. And how many companies like the one that I started, they're not still with us, but a lot of work got done, right? New plays got premiered, and directors and actors and other artists cut their teeth, and careers were launched. And that was one of the things that I had to explain and talk about with the funders, to say that when we're tracking the success of this, part of this is about which of these companies have hung around for 10 or 20 years. But so much more of it is about how much art got made, who got impacted, and what happened with those careers of those artists who were making that work. So it's thrilling to be able to continue to do this, to do this work and have it funded by Grants for the Arts in San Francisco and the Hewlett Foundation, and Tony Remby and Arthur Rock, two amazing philanthropists who've been funding it at the tune of $25,000 to $50,000 a year for the last 5 or 6 years. And that puts just amazing, cash in the hands of artists, and they frankly don't need, I mean, they always want more, but what they can do with $5,000 or $4,000 is amazing. And what that can do for careers is amazing, and what it frankly is doing in our communities, because there's some really great art that's being made in communities that are being reached that, just otherwise may not have been touched by theater in the way that it can move people's lives. So that's thrilling. I love giving money away. It's great.
Brad, you just touched on something else that I want to get back to. That another thing that I love about Theater Bay Area is this idea of how do you report on the success of art, and that's something I know Theater Bay Area has been doing some deep thinking about for a long time. With the remember the counting new beans paradigm and all of that. Can you talk a little bit about intrinsic impact and what that means, and the different ways that funders like to track the success of art and the case that Theater Bay Area has been making?
Yeah, it's great. And that case making came from that, that chilling moment in Sacramento when we lost almost all of our funding. It was clear that we were not making a very good case. So that was forefront of my mind. And there are a lot of arguments that are made, right? There's a lot of studies that can show the economic impact that the arts and the performing arts are making. And people who go to see a show at Aurora are very likely to have dinner out somewhere nearby, and maybe drinks after, and park somewhere downtown, or ride BART, and all of that is pumping some extra money into the economy as a whole. And that is real. It's real, and it's very important to our local economies and to our downtowns. But everybody knows that we are not making the art so that more people go to the restaurant next door, have a drink. That's not why we do what we do. We do what we do to move people. And I kept wondering if there was some sort of way that we could be talking about that, and when people say, no, it's too ephemeral. It's too, it's too touchy-feely. There's no way you can measure that. And then I was, at a conference, as we do, and I was sort of breakout surfing, as we sometimes do. And I surfed into the sort of closing half of a breakout where Alan Brown of Wolf Brown was talking about this new study that he had developed that would measure the way that the way that audiences were actually moved in various ways by a piece of theater that they were watching. And so I don't think I'd ever met Alan Brown before in my life. I more or less tackled him after the breakout and said, this is so amazing. I've been wondering if there was some way that we could do this for years and years. I want to work with you. I want to find some money to be able to do that. And we launched a small one in conjunction with our free night of theater program, and that was really intriguing. And then we raised some more money, and we were able to do, over a course of several years, a national initiative working with theaters in 6 or 7 cities around the country, really digging into how an audience member is affected by a play that they're watching in ways that moves them. Like, how are they affected intellectually? What are the new ideas that may have been brought to mind? How are they affected emotionally? How are they affected in terms of understanding culture? It's what's called social bridging and social bonding. So social bonding is where you're seeing something and you're feeling really so much closer with people who are just like you. And then social bridging is like, they're both important. And then the other is like, oh, I'm seeing people who are not like me, but I'm feeling something about them. I'm learning something about another culture, about people who don't think and act the way I do. And there's some empathy, there's some bonding that's happening. And those responses can actually be measured through smart protocols, which Alan Brown is really great at being able to put together. And so from that, we put together this national study. It was bound up in a book called Counting New Beans, along with some amazing graphs and some charts. And this has gone on for years now. Alan and his company continue to offer this for companies around the nation and really around the world. We did that for a while as well. And I think it helped to change the way that theaters were able to talk about the value of their work to their funders, to their boards, to their donors, because I mean, you know that sometimes the most impactful works are not the ones that did the best at the box office or got the greatest review. And so that was what typically the funders and maybe your board wanted to see, was a leaping from his chair little man, and how many people came, which are not unimportant metrics, but sometimes they really don't get at the heart of whether that show really, really hit the mark in terms of moving people. And this gives us another tool to be able to talk about what we really want to be doing, which is moving the audience.
Brad, these are challenging times. And I'm getting reports that have just gotten more challenging. And before our time runs out and we bring this episode to a close, I just wanted to check in with you about what you're looking forward to and what is bringing you joy this week.
It's a great question. So I'm actually going on vacation starting tomorrow. I'm very glad that I did not actually have to go to jury duty instead. That would have been very sad. And I'm glad that so far the air looks better than it did last week at this time. I'm going up to Tahoe. And I'm really looking forward to getting back to working on a couple of plays that I've started. One is a musical that I'm working on with Min Kong. We were set to have a workshop of it with 42nd Street Moon this summer, but guess what? That got blown up. Just talked to Min a few days ago, and with some new ideas to work on rewrites for that. So I want to dive back into that. And then another play that I've been working on and want to finish up. So I hope to get back and doing some creative work of my own in the next week.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Josh, we are in the middle of a very live theater moment right now. We are getting word that Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has passed.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
So
God.
we would like to just take a moment to we're putting her picture up. We'll just hold for a moment.
Mm.
Certainly in honor of her memory, and her championing all the causes that have meant so much to so many folks like me and others. We would love to share. Brad, you offered us a group for advocacy this week, and we would love to honor them in the spirit of RGB.
Yeah, Brad, will
Josh,
you
what
tell
do you
us a little
have?
bit about the Bay Area Transformative Justice Collective?
Yeah, so they're doing some pretty amazing work in terms of training and educating around this concept of transformative justice. And I've had the opportunity to experience some of it firsthand with Mia Mingus, one of the folks there. She worked with a program that Cal Shakes hosted over the course of a year. I went to a couple of those trainings. Some of my staff were involved for the entire year. And just a month or so ago, she did a training for a broader group of theater folks through Cal Shakes again. And the idea of transformative justice is to really find a way that can allow us to look at harm that's done. And some of the folks that they work with are, it's really, I mean, they work with folks who are doing child abuse, right? I mean, it's serious harm. But to be able to work with both the harmed and the perpetrator to address the harm, to find amends, and to keep as much as possible the community together. And sometimes that's not possible, but that's the goal, to both heal the harm that's been done, address it, make amends, and hopefully make the perpetrator not harm again. And that just seems to be ringing so true for us with what we're dealing with in the theater community, looking at hopefully many times the unintentional, but nevertheless serious harm that's been done through racist structures and racist behaviors and biases, and how we can address it, call each other out and call each other in, hopefully make amends, heal the harm, and keep the community as much as we possibly can together. So that idea and the work that they're doing is just so powerful in so many people's lives, and is such, I think, an important model to have for all of us when we're thinking about Justice Ginsburg, that, justice can mean something besides, locking someone up for years and years and years. Justice can really mean healing while also holding up accountability. And how can we hold those two things together?
Thanks for
That
that,
was
Brad.
beautiful, Brad. Thank you.
The Bay Area Transformative Justice Collective is a community-based group based out of Oakland, California, working to build and support transformative justice responses to child sexual abuse. They envision a world where everyday people can intervene in incidences of child sexual abuse in ways that not only meet immediate needs, but also prevent future violence and harm. And you can find out more about them at BATJC. That's BATJC.wordpress.com. So thanks again for that recommendation, Brad. And thanks for all the work that you do with Theater Bay Area. It's just remarkable. And we as Bay Area theater makers, as the Bay Area theater community, we are so lucky to have Theater Bay Area having our back and to have you making it all happen. So thank you so much. And thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks.
Yes,
Enjoyed
Brad.
it. Thank you both.
Many shout outs in the chat. Thank goodness for the advocacy work you and other organizations have done. So valuable. Go TBA. Great work. Thank you, Brad. These are all things coming to us from the
Great.
chat. So you really are making a difference. Viewers, please remember you can always be in touch with us at connects@auroratheater.org. Drop us a line. We love to hear from you. We love when you participate with us in the chat.
Next week on Aurora Connects, we will have Berkeley's artistic directors. We're going to have Kalia Davis, the brand new artistic director of Bay Area Children's Theater, Patrick Dooley, who I believe is probably Berkeley's longest running artistic director of Shotgun Players, and Johanna Felser, who is the still relatively new artistic director of Berkeley Rep. So Berkeley's artistic directors next week.
And Josh Costello, artistic
And Josh
director.
Costello, yes.
of Aurora.
1 year in as artistic director of Aurora Theater Company.
Thank you all. So sad to break the news about RBG. Get out and vote, folks. Get out and vote. So thanks for watching, and thank you for staying connected.